Good morning, afternoon, or evening, Sip&Talkers, and welcome back. I have to just start by saying, wow.
It's been a little intense, hasn't it?
Intense is one word for it. The feedback we got after announcing that little change to the Q&A segment was, our inbox completely blew up. It was just unprecedented.
And it wasn't what you'd expect, was it? Usually it's people sharing nice stories or, asking about their favorite spots.
Not this time. This was like a collective demand, a request for criticism.
Just straight up criticism.
Yes. It was wild. I was reading all these messages, and they all had the same sarcastic, kind of self-deprecating vibe, all built around that phrase, thanks for disliking Taiwan. Mm-hmm. And at first you read it, and you're not sure how to take it, but then you realize it's not hate at all. It's this really deep, pleading request. It's basically saying, please help us say the things we feel every day but can't articulate.
We heard you, loud and clear. So today, we're accepting that challenge. This isn't going to be about the amazing food or the friendly people.
No warm and fuzzy filters today.
We're turning them all off. Today, by your request, we are conducting a full, brutal audit, a hell audit, if you will, of the daily life and the structural problems that you, the people who live there, told us about.
Okay, let's do it. But for a session this intense, we need a way to frame it, right? We can't just use the normal lens.
No, the standard playbook doesn't work. To really understand the logic behind the frustrations, we need to boot up a new operating system, metaphorically speaking. Mm-hmm. We're going to use three, I'll admit, extreme premises.
Okay.
But if we accept these premises, all the pain points, all the complaints, they suddenly start to make a kind of tragic, logical sense.
All right, lay them out for us. What's premise number one?
Premise one. What if Taiwan isn't managed like a people-focused welfare society, but primarily as a high-tech, export-driven corporate state?
Meaning the number one goal is GDP export figures.
Exactly. And the well-being of the average person is just, an externality, a line item they'll deal with later.
That would explain so much, like the record economic growth you read about.
Yeah.
But then this widespread feeling of financial anxiety on the ground, the money's going somewhere, just not to everyone.
Precisely. Now, premise two. What if the whole island operates like one giant luxury boutique counter?
A boutique counter.
Yeah. Everything, even basic necessities, comes with this artificial display fee or a premium. You're paying extra just for the privilege of buying it there.
That perfectly captures that feeling of sticker shock you get for everyday things. It's like there's a hidden luxury tax on just existing.
Mm-hmm. And finally, premise three, which is about governance. What if Taiwan is a 24-hour nonstop giant reality show studio?
Okay, that's a good one.
It means the government agencies are more worried about optics, about managing public drama and political fights for content, than they are about making effective long-term policy.
So if we take those three, the corporate state, the boutique counter, and the reality show studio, then all the stuff people wrote in about, the insane prices, the low wages, the chaotic traffic, it all starts to look like a predictable outcome of a broken system.
It's the system working as designed, just not for the average person.
Okay. Let's dive right into that first premise then, the corporate state and how it impacts the consumer. We got so many messages about the cost of living, but I think the one thing that really hit a nerve, the most visceral point of pain, was the price of a car.
Oh, yeah. That came up again and again.
I read this one story from a listener, and it was just devastating. They were in the U.S., saw a popular SUV for around $30,000.
Pretty standard price.
Right. They go back to Taiwan, find the exact same model, and the price was more than double. The way they put it was, I feel like I'm buying two cars, but I'm only getting one.
That is the perfect way to describe it. And that feeling, that extra car you're paying for, but not getting, is what people bitterly call the patriotic tax.
The patriotic tax.
It's a textbook example of the corporate state in action. It's this multi-layered wall of protectionism that's designed to squeeze every last dollar out of the consumer, all to protect very specific corporate interests.
So break that wall down for us. It's not just one single tax, is it?
Oh, no, it's a work of art, really, an extortion mechanism. First, you get hit with the 17.5% import tariff. That's just your ticket to get in the door.
Okay, almost 20% right off the top.
Then comes the real killer, the commodity tax, the huishui. That's another 25 to 30%. But here's the crazy part. It's not based on the car's original price.
No.
It's calculated on the price after the import tariff has already been added.
Wait, so it's a tax on a tax?
It's a tax on a tax. It compounds the cost instantly before it's even gotten off the boat.
That is just administratively insane. And that's not even all of it, is it?
Nope. You still have to add the business tax, which is like a VAT and a little trade promotion service fee. By the time you sign the papers, you, the consumer, have paid a 60 to 70% premium, at a minimum.
And sometimes much more, right, for cars with bigger engines.
Much more. The brackets are progressive. It's designed to be painful.
Okay, so here's the part that I don't get. The justification for this wall is always, we have to protect our domestic car companies. You know, the Fubu Kiniguchin, the domestic industry that can't be helped. But does it actually help them?
This is where you really see the corporate state premise in action. And it's a devastating irony. This huge tariff wall doesn't create a strong, competitive domestic auto industry.
Why not?
Because the domestic car makers still have to import a ton of their key parts. The engines, the transmissions.
So they're paying tariffs on those parts too.
They are. But here's the trick. Because the price of a fully imported Toyota or Ford is artificially jacked up so high, the local brands could just raise their own prices to sit right underneath the competition.
They have no reason to be competitive. They've got this massive price cushion.
Exactly. There's zero pressure to innovate, zero pressure to lower prices. So what you're seeing isn't industry protection. It's just guaranteeing the profit margins for a few specific, powerful conglomerates, the K1.
And when you kill competition, you kill innovation. The consumer ends up paying more for what's often older technology.
The system is just doing what it's designed to do. Protect corporate profits, not the consumer.
Speaking of things that are designed badly, let's talk about where logic just seems to completely disappear. This was another huge theme from listeners, the legally buy, illegally use contradiction.
Yes. This is our first real glimpse of the reality show's studio premise in action. The bureaucracy creates these little dramas where a regular person is caught in this impossible trap between the law and, reality.
The examples with car parts were the clearest. A person can go online or into a shop and legally buy, say, a high-performance brake kit.
Totally legal purchase.
But the moment you install it on your car, you're breaking the law. You could get fined, the parts could be confiscated.
It's a complete internal paradox. The Ministry of Economic Affairs says the market is free to sell the item, but the Ministry of Transportation says you can't use it because they haven't gotten around to updating the safety regulations from, 1985.
It's just pure administrative delay.
It's a severe case of Xingzheng Daiduo, administrative laziness. The regulations are so far behind the technology, and the agencies, especially the Ministry of Transportation, are famous for being in a static state. They just don't have the resources or maybe the will to keep the rules up to date.
One listener shared this really jarring example with firearms. Apparently, you can legally buy certain very specific, highly regulated firearms.
For collection purposes.
But the law says they have to be kept locked up for admiration. You can't take them to a range. You can't use them. So what's the point of the right to buy it if you can never, ever use it?
It's governance as performance. You create the appearance of a right, but you make exercising it practically illegal. It highlights this huge friction between the corporate state side, which is all about hyper-advanced tech, and this government bureaucracy that's running on, analog-era laws.
It creates chaos for citizens, but it's great content for the reality show, right? Endless arguments over fines and rules.
And it puts normal law-abiding people in a terrible position. Do you follow an obsolete rule, or do you upgrade your car with safer, modern parts and risk getting fined for it?
It's just bad governance, plain and simple. Okay, so all these high prices and ridiculous rules might be a bit more tolerable if people's paychecks were going up.
But they're not. And that's the core of the pain, isn't it?
It is. This is the Silicon Shield paradox. You read all these headlines about Taiwan's booming GDP, its importance to the world economy, but the average person is telling us they don't feel any of it.
Because structurally, it's like two different countries on one island. Yeah. You have the tech sector, the semiconductors, the ICT, that's just on another planet. It's over 30% of all exports.
It's the engine of the world. TSMC, AI, all of that. The corporate state is absolutely thriving.
But that's the Silicon Shield, the X-Deen. It protects the economy on a macro level, but it creates this massive disconnect internally. The engineers and the capital owners in that sector are doing incredibly well.
But everyone else isn't.
Everyone else is stuck. People in the civil service, in education, and especially in the domestic service industries, the Minsheng Fuye, their wages have been flat for decades.
And the data backs this up, right? I read that long-term wage growth has just completely failed to keep up with the cost of living, especially housing. It's a structural problem.
It's a low-wage trap. And it's maintained by some really cynical and, frankly, abusive labor practices. The one that listeners kept bringing up was the yin-yang shift, the yin-yang banbink.
That sounds incredibly insidious. What is that?
It's basically an accounting trick to get around overtime laws. So an employee will officially, legally, clock out at 5 p.m. The records look perfect.
But they don't go home.
They don't go home. They stay and keep working. But on the books, their status changes. They might be working under a different identity, or it's called training, or sometimes it's just completely off the books.
So the company gets the hours, gets the labor, but they don't have to pay the legally mandated overtime rate for it.
Not a penny. And the system thrives because labor inspection, the Lao Jing Lilian, just can't keep up. The inspectors check the official clock-out times, and everything looks fine. They can't audit the shadow work happening right after.
So the Ministry of Labor, the Lao Dongbu, is basically fighting an enemy it can't even see. No wonder people accuse them of playing dead swangstay. The abuse is happening in ways the laws weren't written to catch.
And that's the true cost of the corporate state. You have this world-class, futuristic manufacturing sector. But it's being supported by labor practices that feel stuck in the 1990s.
All right, let's shift from the corporate structure to our second premise, which I think explains the daily financial pain even more directly. This is the boutique counter.
Yes. If the whole island is basically one big, expensive shop, then the most basic items should have these massive artificial shelf fees built in.
And the number one example of this, the poster child for the boutique counter, has to be milk, fresh milk. It's basically white gold there.
The data is just staggering. Consistently, year after year, Taiwan's fresh milk is ranked as the second most expensive in the entire world.
It's like 2 or 3 times what you'd pay in the US or New Zealand. I've seen the tiny little cartons that cost what a half-gallon costs here. I always just assumed it was because, local farms are small and it's expensive to produce.
That's the official story, the convenient excuse. But if that were the whole picture, we should see prices drop when import costs go down, right?
Logically, yes.
Well, here's the test case. Thanks to a trade deal, milk from New Zealand is set to have 0 tariffs starting in 2025.
Okay, so tariffs go to 0. The price on the shelf should plummet.
But it hasn't. The wholesale price drops. But the retail price for consumers has stayed stubbornly high. That huge benefit, the money that was supposed to go to the consumer, it's just vanishing.
It's vanishing into the supply chain. So if the government tariff isn't the main problem anymore, someone else is taking that money.
We've found the real villain. It's channel concentration, or Tunglu Lengduan. You have a handful of extremely powerful supermarket and convenience store chains that control almost the entire retail market.
And they have all the power.
They have all the pricing power, the Dimjiaquan. They charge what are called shelf fees, shangji fei, just to put a product in their store.
And how much are we talking about?
We heard from people in logistics that these fees can be 30 to 40% of the product's final cost.
30 to 40%, that's insane.
That's pure profit extraction. So that money that should have gone to the consumer from the 0 tariff deal, it's just being absorbed by a few big retail conglomerates. It's a domestic monopoly that's oppressing the consumer more than any government tax ever did.
Okay, from white gold to another absurdity. Seafood, the island paradox.
You're on an island, surrounded by some of the best fishing waters in the world.
This is what listeners were calling relative deprivation. Jiangdui Budua Jing. You can see the ocean. You know the fish are out there. Why?
It goes right back to the corporate state again. The system is built to prioritize export dollars over the domestic market.
So the fishing industry is all about selling abroad.
Heavily. The best catches, the premium tuna, the lobster, the king crab. A lot of it is processed and shipped directly from the fishing boats to Japan or the U.S.
It never even touches the local market. It's turned into foreign currency before it even lands.
Exactly. And because the best stuff is going overseas, the domestic supply chain for high-end seafood is underdeveloped and expensive.
It's just another item on the boutique counter.
All right, let's move from fresh food to fresh tech. This one is maybe the biggest head-scratcher of all. The iPhone irony.
The ultimate cognitive dissonance.
Right. Taiwan is at the absolute heart of the tech supply chain. They make the chips, they assemble the components. It should be the cheapest place on earth to buy an iPhone.
It logically should be. But the numbers show the exact opposite. If you compare the price of a new iPhone, it's significantly more expensive there than in the US or even Japan. We're talking hundreds of dollars more.
So being next to the factory gives you 0 advantage. What's going on? Why is technology, of all things, so marked up on the boutique counter?
There are a couple of things at play. First is what we can call a currency risk premium.
Okay.
The official distributors who import the phones, they have to deal with the NT dollar fluctuating. So to protect themselves, they just bake a huge margin into the price from day one. They're hedging against risk, and the consumer pays for their insurance policy. That's a business strategy, but it's a brutal one for the customer. What's the other factor?
A lack of real competition between the telecom carriers. In the U.S., you have these brutal price wars. The carriers are desperate to lock you into a contract, so they'll offer huge subsidies on the phone itself.
They'll basically give you the phone for free because they want that monthly subscription fee for the next 3 years.
Exactly. They compete on the price of the hardware. But listeners in Taiwan told us the major telecom plans there are all almost identical. They call them twin brothers.
So there's no price war.
There's no incentive for them to cut the price of the phone. They can all just agree to charge the maximum retail price, and the consumer has nowhere else to go. Another win for the boutique.
If the cars and the milk and the phones are painful, this next topic is the source of genuine existential dread for people: housing. This is the hidden injustice.
This is the issue that connects everything else. It turns the low-wage trap into a generational crisis.
Let's look at the Gini coefficient. The income Gini, which measures how unequal salaries are, is actually pretty low, right? Around 0.339.
It is. On paper, it looks like a fairly equal society in terms of income.
But that's the misleading number. The wealth Gini is the one that matters.
That's the one. It measures assets, real estate, stocks, savings. And that number is over 0.6. That is an extreme level of inequality. It means while people's paychecks might look similar, the amount of stuff they own is wildly different.
And that difference is almost entirely driven by real estate, by housing.
Completely. The older generations who bought property 30, 40 years ago have seen its value explode, mostly untaxed. It's been like a massive government-approved hedge fund.
While the younger generations who only have their stagnant wages are completely locked out, for them, owning a home is it's an irrational dream.
And that directly leads to the single biggest demographic failure, the collapsing birth rate.
It's an economic decision.
It's a rational economic choice.
Yeah.
Why would you take on the massive stress and cost of raising a child when you can't even afford a stable home for yourself? The predicted fertility rate for 2025 is somewhere around 0.85. That's one of the lowest in the entire world.
It's the logical endpoint of the corporate state. People are literally choosing to not reproduce because the system has made it too expensive.
And this also explains that phenomenon listeners called body inflation tian tungping.
The inflation you can feel.
Right, the kind that feels way higher than the official government statistic. The classic example is the disappearing NT $100 bento box.
That basic lunchbox meal.
It's gone up by maybe 8 to 15%. And people think, oh, it's the price of chicken. But it's not really the chicken. The government subsidizes electricity and water, which should keep costs low. The real reason the price is going up is because the restaurant's rent is skyrocketing.
So the cost of that lunch isn't really food, it's rent.
It's rent extraction. The money is flowing from the worker buying the bento, through the restaurant owner, and straight to the landlord, who's probably one of the people who benefited from that massive wealth gap in the first place.
Okay, so the corporate state is making money, the boutique counter is draining everyone's wallet. Let's move to our third premise, the reality show studio.
Where the government is more focused on drama and optics than on actually fixing things.
And the lead actors in this drama, according to our listeners, are the playing dead duo, the Zhuang Xiongrenze.
The Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Labor. They look busy, they generate a lot of headlines, but structurally, nothing ever changes.
Let's start with traffic. People didn't just say the traffic was bad. They called it a survival game. They said being a pedestrian is terrifying, and the death rates are incredibly high for a developed nation.
This is a profound failure of governance and a perfect example of the reality show model. The Ministry of Transportation, the Jiaoqingbu, relies almost exclusively on what's called end-stage governance. Moduanzik.
You're just treating the symptoms, not the disease.
Exactly. They put up speed cameras, they issue millions of tickets, they encourage vigilante reporting, Zhengmoren, where people just send in their dash cam videos. It looks like they're doing something.
It creates a lot of drama, fights over tickets.
So much drama. But it allows them to completely avoid the root cause.
Which is not bad drivers, but bad roads.
It's bad engineering. It's a refusal to fix the fundamental problems with road geometry, the Dalu Jinghe Sheiji. The roads are designed for cars to go fast, not for people to be safe. You have sidewalks that just disappear, intersections with no clear right-of-way, and of course, the constant illegal parking that forces pedestrians to walk in the street.
It's literally called pedestrian hell.
And instead of redesigning a dangerous intersection to be safer, the government just puts up a camera to catch the crashes on film. It's better content for the reality show that way. Constant conflict, but zero solutions.
And every reality show needs cheap, endless content. Which brings us to another major source of anger, the information shallowing hell.
Zixun kindiehwadiyu.
Listeners are furious. They feel like the news is just an endless loop of car crash footage from dash cams, petty arguments from social media, and celebrity gossip. They called it car crash porn.
It's pure media economics. It's the reality show model applied to journalism. Cost minimization, click maximization.
It's cheap to produce.
It's practically free. Think about it. Sending a real journalist overseas, doing an actual investigation, paying for professional news feeds, that's expensive.
But grabbing a viral clip from a dash cam or a post from social media?
Costs nothing. You can fill a 24-hour news cycle with it using a skeleton crew.
And the consequence of that is a huge knowledge gap.
It's critical. The amount of international news coverage is often less than 10%.
Right.
So you have a population at the absolute center of global geopolitical tension that is almost completely disconnected from global context.
They're being fed a diet of local drama while the world is focused on them. And that creates a weird psychological effect, doesn't it?
A huge one. All that external threat, the military exercises, the political pressure, it creates this enormous free-floating geopolitical anxiety.
And people feel powerless to control that.
Right. So what do you do with that anxiety?
Yeah.
You transfer it. A transfer of anxiety, Zunye. You channel all that fear and stress inward into obsessive, intense, internal political polarization.
The blue versus green tribalism.
It turns politics into a spectator sport. A Tandu Jingsai Hua. Your party is your team. The other party is the enemy. It's all about scoring points and winning the daily news cycle.
And as long as you're winning the political game and shouting the right slogans,
your actual failures in governance, the terrible traffic, the flat wages, the messy cities, they all get ignored. It's the perfect distraction machine for the reality show studio.
Let's talk about some of the pillars of society, the things that look great from the outside, but people on the inside are telling us are crumbling. Let's start with the healthcare system.
Yeah.
The Jianbian.
The medical myth. It's praised around the world for its efficiency and affordability. But we have to be honest about how that efficiency is achieved. The patient experience is incredible. It's cheap, it's fast. Reimbursement rates from the national health insurance are set incredibly low. A complex surgery might get reimbursed for a fraction of what it actually costs to perform. So to stay afloat, hospitals have to push their staff to see more patients, work longer hours, all for relatively low pay.
And what's the result of that pressure cooker environment?
The system is starting to break. You have drug shortages, because it's not profitable for companies to sell their drugs at the low government-mandated prices.
And the staff is leaving.
There's a massive attrition rate. And Yihu Lizi Chow, doctors and nurses are burning out and quitting. They can make so much more money with a better quality of life in private clinics outside the national system. The whole thing is unsustainable. The 2025 NHI budget has officially broken the 1 trillion new Taiwan dollar barrier.
1 trillion. That's an astronomical figure. But the paradox is, even with all that money, you hear that medicines are getting scarce. This idea that the elderly are treating clinics like convenience stores, is that just a stereotype?
Well, the data does back it up, but only to a point. Look, people over 65 are about 17% of the population, but they consume almost 40% of the medical spending.
Wow.
The average person in that group visits a doctor 15 times a year. That's one of the highest rates in the world for a system like this.
15 times. So what's behind that?
It's partly a cultural thing, this no medicine, no cure mentality, and that leads to incredible waste. We're talking hundreds of millions in discarded drugs every year.
But is that the real driver of the cost, the waste?
It's an issue, for sure. But the real financial black hole is the high-cost, long-term chronic care that comes with a rapidly aging society. That's the big one.
Okay, what about the other explosive rumor, the Lupe loophole? The idea that Chinese spouses' parents are using the NHI like an ATM and selling drugs back home?
Right. This is where you have to look at the actual rules. Most of these family members are on short-term visiting family permits, 6 months usually. But to even enroll in the NHI, you need 6 months of continuous residency first.
Oh, so they can't just land and sign up. The timeline doesn't even work.
Exactly. For the vast majority of short-term visitors, the loophole is already closed. It's mathematically just not the main problem.
Let's test an extreme solution. What if we say, okay, everyone gets only 5 visits a year, and we cut off all non-Taiwanese born people? Does that fix it?
I mean, that completely ignores what social insurance is. You might block 1% of the supposed leakage.
But the knock-on effect would be huge.
It would be a catastrophe. You'd cause maybe 20% of severely ill patients to avoid getting early treatment. Their conditions get worse. And the final cost to society is way, way higher than the $1 trillion we're talking about now.
So focusing on these groups is just finding a scapegoat.
Absolutely. It's easier than facing the real issues. Low premiums and a massive demographic shift. But, the system is criticized because it's so good and so widely used. It's one of the few places on Earth where a major illness won't bankrupt you.
From the big institutions to just daily life. This was a sad one to read about. The erosion of public morality.
This is the result of all the other stresses we've talked about, all bleeding into public spaces.
We heard so many small daily frustrations. People walking 5 abreast on a narrow sidewalk, not queuing properly, talking loudly on their phones on the train, leaving their trays at food courts, littering.
And that rise in aggressive customer is king behavior, which often ends in someone getting publicly shamed online, the gunshun.
And the point listeners were making is that these aren't just, cultural quirks. They're symptoms of a society under extreme stress.
Exactly. When you're dealing with the low-wage trap, the impossible housing market, the daily chaos of the traffic, basic politeness and courtesy become a luxury. It's an emotional resource you just don't have enough of to spare for a stranger.
So the intense pressure of daily life is chipping away at that famous Taiwanese human kindness, the ranking way.
It's being eroded by the structural failures of the state. That's a truly heartbreaking thought.
Okay, let's end the audit on a visual note. The aesthetic dilemma. The question is, for a place with such a high GDP, a global tech leader, why do the cities often look so chaotic?
The Tin Roof Society. TPV.
Yes. The rusty tin roofs everywhere, the tangled nests of electrical wires, and of course, the illegal rooftop additions, the Diangluji guy.
This is the literal set design of the reality show studio, and it's caused by a clash between private obsession and a complete failure of public authority. Ngukwanli Shiling. It's driven by what you could call property rights fetishism, Qingquan Mizi.
What do you mean by that, fetishism?
People are obsessed with their private interior space. Inside of their apartment, it might be beautiful, spotless, perfectly designed. But they have a total indifference to the public, external space.
The hallways, the outside of the building, the street, that's someone else's problem.
It's someone else's problem. And when you combine that indifference with a profit motive, you get the illegal rooftop additions.
They've become this huge vested interest, right? They provide affordable housing, they generate rental income for the owners.
A massive vested interest. And the government is terrified to do anything about it. If they started tearing them down, they'd be seizing people's assets and losing a ton of votes.
So it's easier to just do nothing, to prioritize political survival over enforcing basic building codes or safety standards.
It's systemic inaction. So even as the technology inside the buildings gets more and more advanced, the city itself stays visually chaotic. It's a perfect reflection of a government that chooses to protect private interests over the public good.
Well, that was without a doubt the most brutal audit we have ever done on this show. But I really feel like we met the challenge our listeners gave us. We didn't pull any punches.
No, we didn't. And what I think we uncovered is the source of that core anxiety. It's this heartbreaking gap between Taiwan's incredible potential as a high-tech giant and these really deep systemic failures in daily life.
And that phrase, thanks for disliking Taiwan, it makes so much sense now. It's not a request for hate.
No, it's a signal of what you might call sober pain, kringatatongge. It's the pain of knowing exactly what the problems are, the tariffs, the monopolies, the broken regulations, but feeling like the political will to actually fix them just isn't there.
And we really want to stress this, to you, to everyone listening, this kind of criticism is not hate. It is the deepest expression of hope.
Absolutely. The whole point of this was to push for a conversation about institutional change. You can't just rely on that famous human kindness, the ranking way, to paper over all the cracks in the system.
Human kindness is amazing, but it doesn't stop a traffic accident caused by a badly designed road.
And it definitely doesn't fix a low-gauge trap caused by corporate monopolies. You need institutional solutions, not just cultural resilience.
So before we go, our final thought for you to chew on this week. Based on everything you sent in, we see two clear paths for our next deep dive into these issues. We need you to tell us which one you want.
Option 1. We go back to the corporate state and we do a deep, deep dive on wages. Why is the salary structure stuck at a 20-year-old level, despite all the growth? We'll break down the specific economic blockades.
Or option 2. We explore the psychology. We dive into the reality show studio and that feeling of self-deprecation. What is the emotional core behind the "thanks for disliking Taiwan" anxiety? What does it tell us about national identity in a high-pressure world?
Let us know which audit you want us to run next.
Our hell audit for today is complete. But if you have more unspoken observations, more hellish details you think we missed, please send them our way.
We'll keep digging. We'll keep pushing for an objective look at these things, because that's how things get better.
And before we sign off, on a much lighter note, please go check out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel. It's called Mickey to Life. He's got fun memes, travel vlogs. It's the perfect palate cleanser after a heavy topic like this.
It really is. So check that out. We'll continue this conversation next time. Bye-bye.
See you next time, everyone. Bye.